Welcome back to my annual Oscar series where I talk about all the Oscar categories except for the short film ones. I rank all the nominees per category according to who I think deserves to win the Oscar. Then I make a prediction for who I think will win each Oscar. So right now we're going to be talking about Best Sound Mixing. Again, I will define what sound mixing is a bit later because some people are still confused, and rightfully so because it is confusing. But first, the nominees are Arrival, Bernard Gariepi Strobel, and Claude Lahaye. Hacksaw Ridge, Kevin O'Connell, Andy Wright, Robert McKenzie, and Peter Grace. La La Land, Andy Nelson, Ai-Ling Lee, and Steve A. Morrow. Rogue One, David Parker, Christopher Scarabocchio, and Stuart Wilson. And 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, Greg P. Russell, Gary Summers, Jeffrey J. Habush, and Matt Ruth. So whereas sound editing refers to sounds created in post to be later on inserted into the film, sound mixing really refers to how a movie sounds overall. So this refers to how dialogue, music, sound effects, etc., ambient noises really work together to create the entire soundscape of the film. And to judge this, in my opinion, I look at volume and balancing of different levels. I focus on like on-set sounds instead of sound effects that happen in films. It is a bit confusing at first, and I'm still not super well versed in it, but I will try my best. In terms of who I think deserves to win this, at 5th place I'm going to give it to 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi. Just like with sound editing, there are a couple of really bizarre nominees here, and 13 Hours is one of them, because you would think that the Academy would lump in all the war films into sound editing to really kind of make the competition harder, but for some reason 13 Hours ended up in sound mixing. And honestly, there's really nothing outstanding that I can remember in terms of sound mixing when it comes to 13 Hours. Perhaps I've just been spoiled by movies like Zero Dark 30 and Lone Survivor that really do have outstanding sound, but 13 Hours is just sort of like a generic war film to me, so I don't know why it was nominated. At 4th place, I'm going to give it to Rogue One. This is an even more puzzling nomination because you would think that the Academy would nominate a Star Wars film in sound editing, given like all the sci-fi sounds it has and all the things happening. So in terms of sound mixing, it doesn't really do anything too remarkable either. There are no sequences that stand out to me as really well sound mixed moments. But it does have a higher spot compared to 13 Hours just because of the sheer variety of stuff going on and the fact that things are still coherent, so I will give it that. Now, 3rd place, again, now we're on to the worthy nominees. 3rd place, I'm going to give it to Hacksaw Ridge. What Hacksaw Ridge does that I've mentioned in the previous video is that it paints a really complete picture of a war zone and just the sheer number of moving elements, the number of people involved on a battlefield. And there are a few moments in the movie where it's just all this chaos and all this noise, and the music sort of emerges from that noise to really highlight a certain emotion or certain victory, just like how Desmond Doss is sort of emerging from the chaos of the battlefield to really become the sort of hero he wanted to be. The best moment I can think of from Hacksaw Ridge that really comes off to me as like a really well-sounding moment is that scene where he keeps repeating to himself, "Lord, just give me one more," because his voice mixed with the music and mixed with like just the sounds of everything happening, it really creates an emotional impact that needed good sound to work. Now, at 2nd place, I'm going to give it to Arrival. Arrival's soundscape is so much more than just the heptapods, even if the heptapods are the main attraction here in terms of sound. But there are like just simple things going on with the sound design in Arrival that really help with the atmosphere. I think the earliest example of this in the film is when Louise is in the helicopter with Jeremy Renner's character, and he's trying to say something to her but she can't hear it, so she puts on like the headset, and then his voice filters through and you hear it underneath like the noise of the helicopter. And just little things like that, like smoothing out communication between characters, it really helps focus the audience, and the audience stops noticing the sound, and not noticing the sound is a mark of good sound. But Arrival definitely makes use of eerie silences as well, and when the music from Johan Johansson kicks in, like the music blurs together with the sounds of the heptapods, and it just creates something that is overwhelming, as well as if you're there in the shell with them listening to these creatures, and it takes you through a whole range of emotions from fear to wonder and whatnot, and it's really, really well done. But at first place, the film that I think deserves to win Best Sound Mixing is easily La La Land. There's so much going on in this film, but everything really sounds like it's on one cohesive channel. You know, of course, there's the music, which is beautiful, but then you have to take into consideration how some of these scenes, particularly the audition scene, was recorded live. Like, that is Emma Stone's actual voice, but it doesn't sound like it's being sung live. It sounds clean, it sounds pre-recorded, but it's not. There are also a number of parts where it's actually Ryan Gosling playing the piano, and again, it doesn't sound like it's him playing the piano because the sound is so clean and it's so balanced out with everything in the actual music track playing in the background. But I think maybe the best moment for me in terms of sound mixing in La La Land is during the start the fire sequence, when after they finish playing the song and the audience is cheering, and then the audience gets louder and louder to the point that it's kind of scary, and it drowns out sort of Mia from the crowd, and then it abruptly cuts. Like, that use of sound in that scene is really well done. And really, anytime the theme of Mia and Sebastian starts to swell up and overwhelms the picture, it really adds to the emotion as well. It never feels like it's beating you over the head with an emotion. It just feels grand and sweeping, which is hard to pull off. And I also think La La Land will take home this Oscar. That is my prediction, because historically, almost all musicals win when they're nominated in this category, especially if you have live singing, which is what took Les Miserables to the Oscar back in the day. Alright, so those are my thoughts on the Best Sound Mixing category. What do you think of the nominees? Who do you think will win? Who do you think should win? Whatever you guys think, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.